Thank you.
You're on.
Okay, everybody, good evening. Thanks for coming. We have an action-packed evening, so we'll get going as quickly as we can here. Just have to read this about this meeting. The meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable Government's Access Channel in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A. Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing nobody, we'll move on. The meeting will be replayed via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable's website. Okay, so with that, let's do roll call.
Maureen Piccioni.
Bill Carey.
Pete Sampu.
Nina Coleman, Park Manager.
Donna Bragg.
And Tom O'Neill. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry, I was actually reading the email from her.
No. And I'm turning my
Okay,
phones down,
so anybody have any, we skipped our August meeting, so anybody have any comments about the July minutes? If not, I'd look for a motion to approve.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. Just a quickie notes from the chair. Just making mention that three of us, Maureen and Rich and I, were reappointed to the board, which I guess is a good confirmation that to some extent, that the agenda that we're driving and the advice we give the town council has been seen as useful. So that's always good to know. So it's a good confirmation of, I think, the work that you guys are all doing as members of the board. So that's great. Another 3 years of conflict of interest training. Okay. Correspondence. Nothing? Okay. Staff report?
Yes, thank you. Happy post-Labor Day, my favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
And the beach continues to be busy, but extremely mellow. We had a wonderful season, and as you know, we'll be doing a summation of our year in the winter. But I will say, very, very productive year. Lots of beach available. Plovers did great. Turtles did great. Humans did get great. Revenue was really robust. We had very, very few sandy neck emergencies. We had some peripheral stuff, but really no alcohol issues. So I think it's a mic drop on this one. So good year. So here we are, post-Labor Day. The gatehouse hours are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. There are times we have to duck out if we're low on staff, and then we post the gate with our cell phone number, and people can grab us when we're out on the beach. Gatehouse is selling fall ORV permits, so they're at a reduced rate. You have to go online to set that up. You come by and pay for it and pick it up. The ORV beach is open all the way, 4.5 miles. As you know, I've been keeping you up to date, and that actually was a little early this year. We got to 4.5 miles. We are maintaining, or we have been maintaining a day tripper only area. And we do that because that's where the portable toilets are. And so we try to create an area for day trippers only, and the campers have the other 3.5 miles. So it's one mile of a day tripper. That'll probably be changing very soon. Minimal staff left, so be patient, be kind. A lot of our staff are cottage owners. They're not cottage owners. They're college students. And so we're kind of running a little lean right now. We've already started removing fencing. We are in anticipation of hurricane season. We like to be a little ahead of that. But there are still portable toilets on the beach. And she's not moving. And she's... last time too, Donna.
I know, it's just a weird glitch.
Right?
Tom, what do you see there? How could she
Do you
move?
see
Well, get out of the screen. Just
Do what?
escape. Just hit escape.
I think there's the next slide on here, isn't there?
Go to slide. Yeah.
Go to slide.
No, next. Top one. Just hit next.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
So you want the clicker?
I would. Sarah, you're the best.
She lives in that little room.
One behind the curtain.
She is behind the curtain. So this year, we still had our jet ski on the beach. We did get lifeguards, as I've reported. In July, at some point, we did get lifeguards, but we were having, and we have had a number of issues, particularly with floaties, with offshore wind. We're kind of in the middle of quite a big distance from fire department, so they come from Millway, or the harbor master may or may not be underway, or Sandwich, which is still this 15, 20-minute. So that's why we have the jet ski for rapid response, water response. But we also had a number of issues with floaties, and so we started a new program. So if there's an offshore wind, or if there's an onshore wind or a light offshore wind, large floats must be anchored. So everybody and their brother has those
Lily pads.
pads, and they are set up with an anchor, but we make sure everybody's anchored up, no matter what the weather is. Paddle boarders outside of the surf zone, so out kind of over your head, if you will, is how I talk to staff about it. Paddleboarders and kayakers, a PFD has to be on board, and a child must be wearing a PFD. So there's laws in place that children can be playing on a paddleboard inside the surf zone, and they don't have to have a PFD. However, when we have those big wind days, when we selected the wind 17 miles per hour, when we know we're going to have a big wind day, we use the app, and you get an alert that it's a no float day. It's marked in a number of places as you're driving on. And paddleboards in and out of the surf zone, as well as kayaks, we want to see that PFD on board, and we want to see the child have the PFD on them. So some new safety, just to keep improving on our safety solutions.
So expand on the lifeguards. You had lifeguards for,
So we didn't have lifeguards initially through the 4th of July, and then they were able to hire enough lifeguards. All the beaches weren't covered in town, but they did select Sandy Neck as the next one, so that I think Hathaway's and Sandy Neck came online at the same time. I may have the other beach wrong. So we did have lifeguards. We went down, because it was a limited amount of guards, we went down to 2 towers instead of 3 towers, so we could have 4 guards instead of 6 guards. You can't have 1 guard out. There
Yeah.
has to be at least 2 guards with a third. And that's how you run a rescue. You have to have a guard rescuing the rescuer if the rescuer needs rescuing, and then you have to have a guard doing comps on the beach. So we were able to have 2 towers, and then we were able to do training with all these young people on the jet ski. It was really productive. So they were going to be our second rescuers off of a jet ski.
the lifeguards
The
were.
lifeguards, yeah.
So was that like from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock that you had coverage?
It really kind of
Excellent.
depended on the tides. It's really
Yeah.
hard to launch that thing at super low tide, but we really worked on it. We have a couple of different ways of launching, and we were covering as much of the spread of the day as we could. And then if we couldn't cover because we didn't have enough staff or the tide was wrong, we would make sure the 24, which is our harbor master vessel, was nearby. So we really took it seriously this year.
Do you think next summer we'll have lifeguards then?
I am not an
Yeah.
economist. I know that there's a lot of issues with staffing on Cape Cod. There's a lot of issues because staff can make a lot more money with tips. But I know that the rec department is trying very hard to try to get people in the pipeline, and they're doing a very good job.
Yeah, I hope you have plenty of staff next year, lifeguards in particular.
Nina, I just have a clarification on floats as far as on the offshore wind days. Are you including lily pads in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when the wind is kicking out of the south, it's no floats. Yeah.
Because we did have an incident, and the reason why, we'll clarify this, because lily pads, they anchor them down,
They
that's
just
great.
go.
But when they're trying to anchor them down and you've got a big, huge south wind, blows off. Now we have to contact Harbor Master. Harbor Master has to contact,
Yeah.
what are those people?
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, to let them know that there is something floating out there, no souls on board. But that's a big deal, because now you have to put not just us, but several other departments in play. And people have had these guys get away from them. the
Yeah,
lily pads.
we've had lily pads floating around Cape
Floating
Cod
around quite a
Bay.
bit. Yeah.
Plus, if they get loose and they're found by somebody, they would get reported, then they start looking for souls.
They're looking for
If they're not sure, so you end up with a search going on, you know.
Yep.
for-
Yeah.
Yeah, but really the theory is to make that decision in the morning and look at Windy, which is one of the best apps in the world.
Yeah, we use
And you
it.
can see what your gusts are and your wind direction, and even if it's not over 17 at 8 a.m., we can still call it. You can always lift it, but it's better not to get them in the water and have people be aware of it.
If
And
it's-
nobody has been
Complaining.
frustrated about it.
Okay.
Okay,
one.
from one person.
Yeah, called me up and yelled at me and said, "How dare you decide when we can put a floaty in the water?" And I said, "Ma'am, we dare. We have to. It's for safety. Safety trumps everything. So we did have the one person, and it's actually on the board in the back. We actually wrote it up there because it was.
We did have a couple of youngsters go out on a paddleboard early this season with an offshore wind, and neither of those children had PFDs on,
Right.
and that's terrifying.
Sandwich had to make a number of rescues of people on paddleboards this summer.
I have made a number of rescues,
Yeah.
not of my own, but out there, because I always have my paddleboard with me,
Yeah.
so.
Well, if it's below 17, it's gusting 25 or so, so you're talking a lot of wind.
It's hard to tell people they can't play and use things, but, we have to be a little logical here. And
Well,
We
but
wanna keep you safe.
You got the best beach around, and it's like you can swim.
Yeah.
You can do other things without.
Right.
Float on your back.
and float out, yeah.
I would say that people might not put lily pads in a float category, so I don't know if, making that would just be my recommendation. I think float, blow up,
Okay, that's good to know.
rubber ducky.
Pads or something like that.
Yeah, that's all.
We'll clarify. Good.
Okay.
All right. Turtles are hatching, terrapins are hatching. This is staff. Dina Allard is our permanent part-time officer right there, and we all know Antonio. And they're pit tagging a turtle so that we can track that animal if we re-encounter it. So they're hatching, they're emerging. Remember, we had 600 and something?
609 nests.
So multiply that by 12-ish. That's a lot of little babies floating around in the dunes. So cottage owners, be very mindful when you're driving out there. Donna, you want to talk about this one?
Great time at the third annual Veterans Picnic. We just had a wonderful time with all the veterans. They treated us very, very well. This is a meet and greet for all the veterans that go to the Hyannis Vet Center and use their services. And they were so excited because they had over 60 people. Just the nicest crowd. They fed all of us. We took care of them. We made sure that they were happy. This has become a very, very successful event, and the veterans are loving it, and they're asking for more things that they'd like to be included in that, which we're going to try to help them out. So can't say enough about it. And that's Adam. He's one of the guys in charge of the Veterans Center in Hyannis, sweetest person on the planet. But yeah, we had fun and great burgers. Yeah.
Great burgers. And I'm sure this is really Donna's excellent work here, and also Donna for years now has been working on this free ORV permit pass for veterans that are actively involved at the vet center. So we have a small but really positive group that utilizes those as well. It's a place to heal is how we call that.
All right.
I wonder if, excuse me, we have these cleanups twice a year, and usually one of them kind of runs is pretty well attended. The other one, generally not so much from my experience. But I wonder if we could connect like a group like that to,
Yeah, I could for sure
cleanup,
mention that.
just see if they might be able to.
Yeah, a lot of the veterans, of course, are much older, but
Well,
the whole purpose of this
yeah.
meet and greet is to get some of the younger folks in
Yeah.
there. And we did have quite a few families with kids and stuff, so I'll drop Adam a line.
Yeah, just if a
an
few of
email
them
and
show
just
up,
say,
it
"Hey,
helps the
invite 'em,
numbers. Yeah.
Come on and just come on down and they can help clean the beach. And this year we will have more people. We just got a note from some other group that's going to come, and they got about 20 people signed up already.
cool.
So I think it's going to be a big event.
Oh, that's great.
And now we, right into that.
So right into that, September 4th, which in my mind has already happened, we had the hike for terrapin hatchlings with Mass Audubon. I get to lead the September 11th hike, fall migration hike. You know, Sandy Neck is in her glory in the fall. I mean, all these birds are flocking up. It's just a beautiful time to come out and see what's going on. Everybody's seeing the swallows flock up, which are
Yeah.
like spectacular. So that would be this Wednesday, I believe, 10 to noon, and then Donna's Coast Sweep on the September 15th, 9 to noon. So come on down. And then congratulations, as I mentioned in the past, Hannah Lawrence has moved on to be Director of Natural Resources in the town of Bourne. They're very, very, very lucky to have her. And our one and only Anne Marie Lupino has been promoted to Assistant Park Manager. So we'll get her in here this winter. She did come last year for the safety solutions, if everybody remembers her speaking. She's a great asset. And even though she's only been a full-timer for a year and a half or so, she's been a seasonal forever, since she was 19. She told me the other day. I was like, you were 19?
Yeah.
So, good addition. And then, Donna, you want to take this one?
Yeah, first of all, Pete Sampu and his crew.
Yay, Pete.
Yay. If you want to take a look here, they did a lot of work. You were involved in that also, were you, sir, or not this one? Okay.
I'm going to
You
get him out
usually
there.
are. You're going to get him out there. But they went
I
out,
need his
We've
expertise.
got some stuff.
and I asked Pete because he's kind of doesn't want to get in the limelight, but I said, please send me an email of everything that got done at the halfway house. And as you can see here, they did a lot of the wood trim, they did a lot of stuff. There are some other things that he is going to request some help with, correct?
Yeah, can I say that right now?
You can absolutely say that right now.
Rich knows as well, I don't have the expertise of replacing a sill. I don't know how to replace or part of a sill.
We have the sill.
Okay,
We have it.
have the sill.
We have
Good.
the sill.
And then there is one board on the southwest corner, whatever that thing goes straight up and down in the corner. It's painted good, but it's rotted.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to replace that. But otherwise, it's in pretty good shape. And the tar paper was only underneath the new wood and trim that I did, not the entire.
Right.
The entire cake.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you guys using AZEK out there as opposed to wood,
Yes.
so it's not
Yes.
keep rotting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's well worth it. We're having a few nibbles on some Barnstable High School and other school groups using the halfway house. So I know that is a goal of the Sandy Neck Board, and I think I don't want to fully report on it yet, but I'm feeling some movement to get some more students out there. So that's good news as well. And I'm still up. That's it. That's all you get.
Okay.
I would like to mention that the students that were helping me were past students. I didn't have this year any of the new students, but ones that had been out there in years past.
Good.
Came back from college, some from 5 years ago. Was the last time they were out there. That was really a lot of fun.
Okay, we don't have Bill here, so we won't have any discussions about public outreach today. I don't think there's anything really hot right now with any Boy Scout projects or anything, but in terms of the sustainability when we get the fees, but right now I just want to talk about the project, which is moving along. You're going to see up here that, we did get estimates now somewhere around $6.5 million to do, as you might recognize, that number's moved around quite a bit over the years. But, as the project gets more refined, goes from 30% engineering to 60% to 90%, it's still not totally, nailed totally down. The costing also gets more refined. So we're assuming somewhere around a project cost of $6.6 million. We did get a grant from MVP for a little over $2.8 million, which is requires matching funds of $1 million, which we anticipate will come out of the enterprise reserve. So that gives us $3.8 million. That leaves 1.8 million, and right now, we don't have any funding for that. We have currently have a grant request in with CZM. Of course, CZM's been for a request for $2 million.
No, not yet.
It isn't in yet. We don't have it.
We have or we do have a request into CZM, but it's for $100,000
Oh, okay.
to get us to the
You're right.
point where we'll be asking for the $2 million in the next grant
That goes in
cycle.
the spring.
That is correct.
Right,
Yep,
so
it
that will
comes
be
out
a
in the
spring request, but we won't be notified of that until the fall. So that's still hanging up in the air, but we're feeling pretty confident that with CZM having been very involved in the project, there's a pretty good chance we'll get support from them. We also have another grant request that's going to go in also next spring.
Yeah,
From National
so-
Fish and Wildlife
so,
Foundation.
Yeah, their CPC funding is a possibility. There's this grant called NEFTA, which we can go after, which is specifically for resiliency, and it calls out dune restoration and construction to improve resiliency. It is a federal grant, so it's more competitive, but it certainly looks applicable for that portion of the project, right? You can peel off portions of the project. So we do intend on going after this one, any other ones that are recommended, and then we would be going after the CZM. $2 million is the most you can ask for. And they haven't had as much funding lately, but I did do a deep dive into what they funded in the past, and it's certainly considering, as you mentioned, they put their money where their mouth is all along, but also when you read the literature of what they've funded, I mean, they funded Duxbury for a whole bunch of sand. They funded Nauset for their parking lot getting moved back. So it's really apples to apples on what type of projects they're funding.
Quick question. Didn't CPC just award $1 million to I think it's one of the marinas?
That's what gave me the idea.
Yes.
'Cause it's access, right? That's how they sold that.
That's one of the things that, depending on the funding, how much funding they have, that's certainly something we should go after.
Well, they're going after everything.
Yeah, we're gonna go after everything, but what I wanna, I don't know if Tom, do you want me to talk about the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, the town council meeting?
So this project is very complicated, very expensive, and has a lot of funding sources coming in while we're moving forward in time. So it makes it extremely challenging to land perfectly in the right spot with all the money secured at the right moment. And what we need to do is we need to have this money secured, the 6.6 secured, by the fall of next year, so that we can put out an RFP, be competitive, and also, award a contract to get the project going in the fall of 2025. However, some of these grants aren't going to be coming in or awarded until after all of that has happened. So unfortunately, there's this leap of faith that has to happen with the town. And so what the town has decided to do is to secure the whole 6.6. So I have the town council agenda where it speaks to securing the 6.6. It had its first read already. And the agenda has not been, this is an agenda item. The agenda has not been set yet for the next town council meeting, but presumably this would be on it. And the next town council meeting is the 19th, yep, of this month. So, essentially, if you can follow my bouncing ball here, we received a grant for $2.8 million. In order to accept that grant, it has to go before town council. In order for the state to give us that grant, we need a $1 million match. So we could have gone before town council with $1 million match and accepted 2.8, but we realized that we needed to secure the whole entire 6.6 so that we would be poised to proceed with this project. So that means that the general fund is the backstop. It's saying that we need to secure this money via fees, via grants, via CPC. I'm confident that we can, but this ultimately, the loan is being taken out as a backstop of the general fund. So I'm going to stop right there and see if you guys have questions before I keep going, because it's a lot to digest.
So basic question, total project cost, 6.6 million. We have, as I recall from the charts that we were working with before, there was an initial cost somewhere in the vicinity of 4 million. And then there was the follow-up costs over the next 50 years. It's like, just would keep adding up.
Yeah.
And that brought us up to like 12 or 13
That was
million altogether?
The maintenance cost. So there's
Yeah,
every
maintenance, good.
every 5 years, there's a maintenance cost.
Okay.
And that's not what we're taking into consideration here. We have a bond that's going to be expiring for the bathhouse, and we have other funding sources. So I'm not talking about maintenance right now. I'm just talking about construction. But you are right, we were in the fours. And I have a slide that explains how we got from here to
Okay.
there. Because I
That's what you're coming up to.
figured you were
I'm
going to
sorry,
ask
I
that
didn't want to.
question. No, I.
Sorry, I
have it.
jumped the gun.
But thank you for that question. I was anticipating that question, so I put Tom and I, thank you, Tom, who's the numbers guy, and I'm not, put a lot of effort into trying to understand that so we could try to explain it. So in 2022, we were at 4.2. You are correct. We had that long sheet, and it had all the
Yes.
choices, and that was what it was, right? And that had embedded in that number, it had a new entrance booth, but it did not include the gatehouse stuff that we later on.
Okay.
So I'm going to go through each thing, but basically, that was 2022. Prices are raising astronomically quickly, and we kept modifying the project, refining the project, having all of this public outreach with all of these wonderful things that everybody wants, which all cost money. And, a lot of money. And that's how we ended up. But when we were at 65% design, we went to 5.6, which included some changes to the gatehouse. This was a big jump, was the changes to the front dune design. And then there was a lot of requests for the rear dune design for the public, and the neighborhood really wanted restoration on the south side. And that restoration work was brought it up another $1 million. It's extremely expensive. Again, there's a grant that speaks specifically to dune restoration that can be secured and then paid back to this, right?
Okay.
Then we went up to 90%. In each of these moments, we had a public meeting, if you recall. Changes to the gatehouse, and includes and then we did the modifications to the ORV entrance, and then the stormwater management. Like, you guys weren't. I didn't even have the sausage making for you guys with the stormwater management. But my goodness, every time you make a change, you have to collect all that stormwater. And all of that is quite expensive. So we went to 6.2, and then we went to 6.4 with the new observation deck. So
Now, having said all that, we still don't have any quotes, though, right? No contractors yet.
no, but we're at 100% design. It's at construction level design, so they've done every single line item. We spoke to the consultants. There's contingencies built into that number. We hope it's competitive, which makes the numbers get lower. And they're pretty confident with the number. We're not 100% confident, but this is what we're going after. This is the number I have.
Good.
So there's some blah, blah, blah there about how this was from the consultant about how they came to what they use for these numbers. So it's this mass DOT bid result data. They have all these ways of getting there. The consultant did want me to point out that some of the stuff is very specialized, so they have to say it's a high number because it's so
As an estimate.
unusual and don't really know what it's going to be, like moving the gatehouse. It's like, well, anybody who's moved a house knows. You start peeling apart that and things go up. And then, as I was saying, there's been significant increases in contractor costs, and we've all seen that on the personal level. That is just the way of the world since COVID. Does that help?
I think this chart is very helpful.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
60 to 100%, and, yeah, and the fact that they have built in contingency in those numbers.
Yeah, the 6.6 has contingencies. You'll see it says 6.4 there. When it goes up to 6.6, that's the contingencies and the mobilization costs and some other things of that nature.
I'm curious, that grant that we got, the $1.8 million.
No.
2.8.
2.8.
I mean,
We got-
2.8.
So we got 2.8, it says 2.771, and I have had Bill Carey in my life for 20 years, and every time the numbers are exactly the same, he's gonna
Yeah.
ask me, so I'm gonna tell you.
Okay.
That we had to peel out the outreach piece, which is something I've been talking to Renee about. We're gonna be doing some outreach to underserved communities, and that was built into this grant.
It was like
So we have to
2.8,
take
3 years
some of that.
It's already out of there. That number has it already taken out.
And that's what's left
Yeah,
over
there's
for
some-
our project.
Right, there's some curriculum building, some school bus costs, it's all kind of in there over time.
Really?
Yep.
That's how they do it. That money, municipal grant money, is that part of the Biden money that's flowed down from the federal government to each of the municipalities?
Anybody want to
Well,
answer? I don't know.
Well, remember how we talked about a NOAA grant originally, a federal
yeah.
grant? All
Thank you.
that money that they
Yeah, we
had
didn't
at the
get that.
federal level that was going to flow to the municipalities, is that money or is that
We-
another grant?
We did not secure the NOAA grant. We went after the NOAA
tried.
grant, and we
Oh.
did not secure it. It's hard when it's federal money. It's a big number, but
Yeah.
everybody's
I mean,
going after
This
it.
is Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
This is not federal, this is
Million is
state.
Massachusetts agency.
Strictly
Now, where
Massachusetts.
did they get the money from the federal government? Who knows? Yeah.
And everybody knows
Okay.
Sandy Neck in Massachusetts. We're in better shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, we're gonna, that 2 million, to be clear, we're certainly gonna go after that number. That 2 million, there's a bunch of different ways we can,
Can get to it.
yeah, and those are written at the bottom, CPC, NEFWEF, it's called, or CZM. That's that 2 million. This red number, 1.8 out of the enterprise account, 1 million of that is already
Matching.
secured. It's surplus.
It's our surplus.
It's our surplus.
The extra money we make every
Right.
year.
Right, so there
we're
isn't
getting
any
The
debt.
rainy, the
We're
rainy
being-
day, say.
Yeah.
But I just remember how they would always grab that and put that into the general fund. So they
They
really,
can't because we're an enterprise.
right, no, they do. But you don't spend.
No, not with the
No.
enterprise.
Enterprise.
Okay. Well, that's great. Good job. Nice job.
That's kind of the whole point of the next discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our surplus. It hasn't been certified yet, but we have around 1.5 million surplus from the
What-
last few years that we've done really well.
1.5 or?
And that's without the price
Yeah, well, you always
increase.
want to
50.
keep,
Right.
So the
we have
price increase will give
1.5
us a
in
little bit-
surplus, but
little
we don't
bit
want to
more
use it
buffer.
all. We have to have rainy day money, so we're going to take that $1,050,000 out and
Okay.
do the match.
Left over will have to be a bond. That's what Nina indicated on here. So that if it's $800,000, roughly it's about $57,000 cost for the debt service for that bond. If you have to finance 1.5 million, it's about 108,000.
$1 million bond is about 57,000.
No, 800,000 bond.
It's right there, see written right there,
800,000.
800 debt service. So I don't really know where we're gonna land, but right now I'm kind of,
Looking good.
I'm feeling like 1.8 out of the enterprise account, considering $1 million of that is already cake, right? I wanted to demonstrate what it would cost if that was what the enterprise account would have to pony up for this project. So the loan, the debt service would be 57.6 annually for 20 years at 3.75, was that what it was? Yeah.
3.75, good.
And like I said, if you had to finance $1.5 million even, it's only 108,000. I forget what the bathhouse debt is. It's 30,000 or something like that, or the bathhouse bond?
Left,
Because
well,
that- that doesn't-
it was $1 million, oh, what's left?
Yeah, I think it expires in, what, 3 years?
I have that
Don't
information.
worry about it. It's just-
No,
it's-
I have it right here.
I think it expires in-
It expires in 2030, and it's 60 grand a year.
Okay.
So that, we kind of want to, we know we have maintenance costs for this project in the future, and they're every 5 years, so just know that we have that in our back pocket, that we're very robust right now, financially.
But just keep in mind, when we get to the fee discussion, these things are related discussions.
All
because
related.
this is how we have a,
Part
you
of the
know,
reason, and Nina and I spoke about this, is the reason we have some money is because the past couple of years, we did not have to do nourishment. And that, 60, 80, $100,000, we've not had to do. So that has helped keep us in the green.
yeah,
It's been
that,
a number of years, I think.
been a few,
like
yeah.
Two, yeah.
Two, and yeah, so at any time the shoe can drop. We still have to get through this winter without losing the parking lot.
Right, right.
Just don't say it too loud.
But, I mean, last winter, everything was out of the south.
Yeah,
For those, anybody living
Yeah.
on the south side beaches, for
Like it.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
okay, so any other, I think, you can see from this that, we're in really pretty good shape financially, I think. Look, a lot of things could still happen. We
Very
don't-
nice.
Very nice.
It was
Thank you.
as deep as it is, it's
I
easy
was
to
a deep
understand.
dive.
Understandable, I shouldn't say easy, but
Yeah.
understandable.
But, you can see the potential, through the grants. We hopefully will pick up some additional grant money, but then we have some leeway because of our ability to fund debt if we need it, so.
So kind of the key is this meeting on the 15th with town council?
19th.
19.
19th.
So
And
they haven't set the agenda yet. I'm going to email everybody once I know. Certainly, the chairman should be there. Pete, if you could be, we need to
Any of
talk
us
this
that
up.
can be there should
Yeah.
be there.
Yeah, I may not be able to be there, but if I can't, Pete will be there, so.
And I do want to vote that, I did meet with the town manager, and he wanted me to make sure that the board understood that even though the stop for this is general fund, the concept is that we're going to
We
secure
got it.
this
Yeah,
money,
we got it.
that we may need
Can't leave 'em in
to,
the
if we don't secure everything we want, we may need to raise fees again.
Yes.
So some sort of vote that understands that, that this board is endorsing this concept of this loan, and that we'll continue to move and be as responsible as we can financially, is kind of what I'm looking for.
Right.
And how I think whoever represents the board can start the conversation with the town council on the night of the 19th.
Okay, so, before we do that, any other discussion?
well, so you'll do the presentation. We'll,
I seriously doubt I'm going to be doing the presentation,
Probably
but I
Mark,
will be there. I will be
okay.
there.
Who does the presentation?
Generally, it would be Amber. I'm not sure if she's back yet.
Oh.
Yeah,
If not, it would be DPW. And I certainly, I haven't even gotten to that point of knowing if we're just going to talk about numbers or if we're going to talk about the project. I think we probably need to have kind of everything prepped. So we'll
For
see.
questions that might be asked.
Yeah.
But they would be voting on approving this.
They'd be voting on approving the
Okay.
6.6.
Will,
Or it's actually, it's 3.8
3.8.
and accepting the 2.8.
will Mark Milne be part of this discussion?
Mark
Okay.
Milne has been
He signs off on it.
been talking with
Good.
me about this for years.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rich?
Very, he's
Thank you.
respected, so
Oh, boy.
if you have him.
You need him.
Will we have an updated map to show them what we plan, what this money will go for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Good. Will it be able to be up on the,
Yes, I would think we
Good.
should have all that.
Yes.
And I think if I speak, it would probably be, I would be pulled up at that point and be like, let me tell you about this amazing project.
Right.
And point out some of the safety features, some of the, just all of the things, goodies that are, and that that it's been endorsed and it's been vetted. These are the things that they want to know, that the community wants it and it has had their input. And I think that we've done a really good job of that.
Do you want to have a motion? That
Yeah.
We as an advisory board are.
Yeah, so make a motion, we can work on this in real time, because I didn't draft anything, but just make a motion that the Sandy Neck Board supports the appropriation and, excuse me, and loan order in the amount of $3.826 million, funds for the Sandy Neck project. I guess, do we need to include the total fund project cost in there?
And the acceptance of the grant.
And the acceptance of the MVP grant, which is $2.8 million, $2.833 million, that the Sandy Neck Board supports the town council appropriating that money to be used to back up the project pending further applications for grants that could also support the cost of the project.
I think grants and potential enterprise account funding. I mean, I think the enterprise account may need to be
part of
tasked
that.
or may not.
Yeah, I'll just maybe add another sentence saying we understand that there may be parts of the project that are not totally funded through grants, and that we recognize that the potential for taking debt, which would be funded out of the enterprise account, is still a present issue, and the board will support that and support anything we have to do to make sure we can financially support the debt for the project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. So excited.
So if you could listen to that,
Yeah.
what I just said.
Listened to it several times over before I
Because I
write
can't
that
say, I
down.
could never say it again, so.
I'll actually might send it to you and say, is this what you
Yeah,
said?
thanks, because I'll never be able to repeat it, so.
Right.
All right, so stand by for an email once I am positive about the 19th. Oh, why didn't you get a copy? I
Nice
gave it to
job.
Renee.
Renee.
Nice
Of
job.
course, yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else want a copy of the appropriation order? No.
You want to figure it out with your calculator? No.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to everybody for all the work we've done as a team on this. I mean,
Add on the roll call that I joined.
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
we
I got
have the
you.
quorum.
we got you. We
I got you right here.
Just
Wouldn't
thank
miss it.
everybody for all the work that's been done on this project. It's been, for some of us, started 8 years ago. And so it's been a long journey, but really thanks to Nina and her team, who've been like stars with the project team, trying to keep this thing going and giving that realistic view of what has to happen out there, because the project teams, they're doing 100 different projects. They don't have the detail, the knowledge, the background, so it really comes from. And that pressure on Nina and her team is just only going to increase significantly as we get into the project, because now it's going to be, how do we manage all this construction and access and all these other things that, no,
Piece of cake.
we're just going to give it all to Donna, I think that's the plan, but
I'll just be leading people
Anne Marie.
down the road. We're going this way today.
But no,
Follow
it's,
the flag.
I
It's-
do want to point out something about access, which is that during this meeting that Tom was on, because we're about to do fees in their calendar year, I was like, what's access going to look like fall 2025? And they're going to start in the parking lot. And so we have at least a full 2025 of access
right.
for the ORV beach, not necessarily for the parking lot.
Yeah, when we do the gatehouse, it gets a little more complicated because it'll be on the main road, but, something their team is focused on, so.
Right, and then we would evaluate 2026 and if there needed to be any prorating.
Could you send that little breakdown as a PDF to,
We'll include this. Nina will send it to
It'll be
me.
in the
We'll include
minutes.
it in the minutes, okay?
all right.
So that will be,
This one, yeah, this one's
yeah,
the best.
everything will be
I have ones
included.
that
Other
are
one.
much longer than
This
that,
one, but
that
the
one's
other
best.
one that showed
keep it
how it
simple.
increased over
Oh,
time.
okay, of course.
That
Yeah.
one really
You want the big
helps.
one?
I think that piece helps, that it was 60%, 90%, 100%.
Yeah.
That kind of unfolds, yeah.
Yeah, that should be in the minutes. That's good. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So we'll move,
The sandwich discussion too, I don't know if you want to do this now or after the fees,
yeah, let's
Mr.
wait till after the
Chairman?
fees.
After the fees?
Yeah.
You don't,
Is there-
do you want the matrix sent out here?
No, why don't we just, let me
Well,
just
we're
take a
not,
minute
we're
to,
not there yet.
let me just have a minute to set a little background on this before we get any further. So,
There's,
you know, in
things ahead of time.
2003, there was a management plan created for Sandy Neck, which I've read through, which I forget how many 100 pages it is, quite extensive. And this was really during the time when Sandy Neck transitioned from kind of the board running Sandy Neck to really becoming more of a professional enterprise account. In fact, that was one of the targets of their report, was to create an enterprise account, hire a park manager, and start to run this like a business. And so in that process, there were a number of recommendations made at the time in terms of how to go about doing this, which related to all kinds of things like access and the cottage sites and outreach and all this, as well as having a good view over the natural communities, both flora and fauna, education, stuff like that. But one of the things that was obviously prominent in this, and it's the reason why we have it on our trio of strategic objectives, is really economic sustainability. So it was really clear in the statements that people wrote at the time that, we need to have measures available to raise revenues, make sure we're paying attention to the budgets and costs, and take the levers that we have, which are, primarily fees, to address those costs as they increase, either through capital projects or increased in services, operating expenses, either operating expenses or capital. So, and this really, supports the idea of an enterprise account, which is really just kind of like really just effectively a business. I mean, it's backed up by the bigger corporation of Barnstable, but essentially, I think the golf courses, the airport, I forget what else is.
HSBC.
Yeah, our enterprise accounts. So they run like, they should be run, in my opinion, like a business. So, and we've been pretty good, I think. I mean, the team has come up with ideas for revenue over the last few years. I mean, we're selling merchandise like crazy out of there now, and the numbers have really gone up in terms of merchandise sales. And we've tried to move fees in a sensible way that relates to not only our need in terms of the costs we have, but also the benchmarking. Looking at what is the situation we're in, and how do we use that as a backdrop for deciding what kind of fee structure we want. And there are two key elements to that. One is the benchmarking, which we'll show you. I think we have a copy of that slide, which shows kind of what all other similarly situated beaches are charging. And then the other piece of it is, let me just go back, is this, which we put together last year. I love data, I hate anecdotes. So what you're seeing there is essentially the same trend as last year. It hasn't changed, which is that the utilization of the off-road trail by Barnstable residents has pretty much stayed flat since 2009. That's a pretty long time. However, the utilization of the off-road beach by non-residents has kind of exponentially expanded and continues to a little bit of a dip since 22. I think we probably had a little bit of pandemic excitement after which kind of pushed that number up a little bit. But the trend line is completely in the same direction. Hasn't really changed. So that's kind of an important factor to consider. You see that. Then you see the other slide, which is you want to put the chart up. So, the team, Nina and her team have gone out and looked at all the other beaches that, frankly, very few have even close to the amount of amenities that Sandy Neck has.
Way low.
Fires and horses and dragging your boat out on the beach and launching it. I mean, there's virtually no other beach that I'm aware of, I think, that you can do all that. But again, if you see these numbers, we're certainly not at the front of the pack in terms of the fee structure. So that's the other consideration. Now, keep in mind, we have 2 meetings on fees. So today was meant to get you thinking about it, give you some data, look at some of the options that the team at Sandy Neck has proposed, have a bit of a discussion on that, and then give you some time to think about it. And then our next meeting, we'll actually vote to make a recommendation to the town council, or to the town manager, sorry.
Can you flip back to the previous one? I didn't have time to, okay. We had a fee increase last year, right?
No.
Year before.
No, okay.
The year before,
Year before we did.
Pretty minimal.
so the year before, we did go up $30 for the non-res. That was the moment that we broke away from the 2-to-1 ratio.
And we didn't raise the Barnstable rates
Yeah.
2 years ago. We kept them
So in
flat.
2023, which by the time, this is 2025, residents stayed the same. We went up that $30 for non-res. And then we went up 2 years ago for the camper overnight fees as well. Those are the substantial things. And we went up on the campfire fee.
So, in summary, the backdrop to this is data showing, utilization,
Right.
benchmarking, looking at other beaches in similar situations. And thirdly, we got a big project. And there's going to be a lot of cost associated with this project going forward. We have to, as someone mentioned earlier, we have maintenance. We don't know what the sand situation is going to be, so that's always a bit of a wild card. So we do need to keep the funding strong within the business so that we have options for capital when we need it. So that's the other third piece of it. I mean, no one likes to see costs go up, but if you've been around for the last 3 years, you've seen just about every cost you can imagine going up. So this was the team's proposal. I don't know that we want to go through this in detail today, but I think, take a look at it.
My only recommendation would be, when I look at this and I see that we're putting a lot of time and effort in to raise fees, I would just recommend maybe we go a little bit further as far as, instead of only raising fee $1, I might recommend that you go for $5. If we're going to put the time and effort into it.
Okay.
I think, and I'm not sure where that aligns with everything else, but when, I don't
For
think.
you're talking about for the overnight?
Like for the overnight and, the 3 overnight fees, I think only went up $1 or $2.
Yeah, it went up $1
Okay.
on resident and $2
Yeah, I would
on-
recommend, I think there's room to go 5, all right, and
Yeah.
I happen to be a user and I have no problem, coming from.
Let me ask you a principal question for discussion rather than getting into the weeds too much right now. 2 years ago, when we raised the fees, we did not raise the Barnstable fees. So Barnstable residents stayed at $95, and we didn't raise any of the camper fees either.
We
did
did 2 years
We
ago,
did,
and that's
okay,
why
right.
I did a
You did it again,
minimal
yeah.
raise. Because 2 years ago, it was a big jump.
So the question for maybe some discussion is there any support for potentially not increasing the Barnstable rates again? And because it doesn't generate tons of revenue, most of the revenue is coming from other sources in this list. But psychologically, and this ties a little bit to the other issue we have, which is Sandwich. This is really not going to probably be a matter for the board to debate, but we do have some data being supplied now that shows Sandwich, is significantly using the parking lot, potentially in ratios that far exceed
The money generated.
Barnstable, the money generated from, and also their beach stickers are $35 and ours are $45. So it's interesting. But that's a discussion that we've had. Anyone who's been on this board for forever, we've had this discussion about the Sandwich fees, which tend to go up every year, incrementally by 2% or something. So we have to do more work to get some of that data pulled together, but it's causing some loss of revenue because we can't sell day passes because the parking lot's filled with Sandwich residents, in some cases,
I can
maybe
go
even
and
keeping
see.
Barnstable residents out because they're filling it up, so.
Slide there. If I can, I just want to sort of talk about what Tom's talking about, since they seem to be related in this discussion. In fiscal year '24, Sandwich provided the town $54,000. And Barnstable contribution was $96,000. Sandwich goes up 2.5% yearly. Barnstable, they have this calculation they do about how many parking spaces they have and how much money they made, and then we get our percentage. So it's usually between 80 and 95. Sandwich sells about 7,480 permits a year, $35 for the first vehicle, 20 for the second. Their biggest other ocean beach is Town Neck, which is portable toilets, no lifeguards. I don't know First Beach. I don't know East Sandwich Beach. I'm assuming they're small. I certainly can look. I don't know if they have comfort stations, but I know they don't have lifeguards according to their website. Sandy Neck has comfort stations, dogs allowed, campfire, concession stand,
So
outdoor
we've got the
shower,
best beach that they have access to.
lifeguards, and the jet ski rapid
Safety.
response, yeah. And officers, and we're open till 10 p.m. So it used to be, well, back in the day, when we counted, it was like a third Barnstable, a third, in season, a third Barnstable, a third Sandwich, a third paying customer. Donna feels like it's more Sandwich, which makes sense because they're closer and they don't have other
Other
beaches with
options.
comfort stations and showers. So Donna,
Yeah, we actually, the staff, I'm there 5 days a week, and I'm right there, right at the gatehouse, seeing it. And for the rest of the time, the staff was very cognizant of it, because it wasn't just me mentioning it. It was other staff, including seasonals, going, wow, a lot of sandwich. So we estimated 4 to 1. We estimated 4 sandwich vehicles to 1 Barnstable vehicle, which is huge. We've noticed that increase since COVID, that it started and it's built and it's built. But again, Nina just mentioned all the amenities that we have comparison to what Sandwich has. But if you look, and they'll bear it out when we go through our fees, all of our reports for the year, our revenue's gone down as far as for parking. And several factors. First, the dunes kind of collapsed on some of the parking, but for the most part, Barnstable residents and tourists have not been able to get to their beach, especially on the weekends when we've had parking lot closures every weekend this year, because there's so many Sandwich residents. And, not that we're not against Sandwich, we love Sandwich, they're great, but we're saying,
Gotta be fair.
we're talking money. We're talking revenue here. So I think it's going to be fair. And we've really noticed it. I mean, everybody has spoken about it this year, that's been at working the gate, like, wow, all Sandwich, no Barnstable.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you flip back to the 56,000 or whatever, 55,000 for a Sandwich? That's currently what they're paying us for the lease. The 96,440 for Barnstable contribution, how was that arrived at? Is that your the people that use that?
so
No.
again.
They get
that's-
100, they get 100,000 of revenue, and they divvy it up to the various
They
beaches.
divvy it up, so we
Yeah,
know
so that's
how
an
many.
It's not
allocation.
complicated.
They know
It's just-
how much revenue they're making from Barnstable stickers, which are 45, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then they know how many parking spots they have. I have 200 parking spots at Sandy Neck, so
divided up.
they just divide it up.
So,
Right.
okay, so,
But Sandwich goes up 2.5% increase yearly, which frankly, if only it were that, the costs are skyrocketing right now.
so if somebody arrives at the gatehouse from anywhere, not a Barnstable resident, not a Sandwich resident, let's say, and they want a parking
Yeah, we
space.
sell them a parking hang
Day.
tagged, a
Is-
day pass.
One day, so how much is that?
It's $25.
$25.
Yep.
Is that part of this 96,000?
No.
No.
That is not. That's only an allocation, that
No,
96,000.
It
generally,
used to be 100,000, and it's now 93,000, because we're losing 6,000 or 7,000 of that revenue. In other words, so it's a,
But Tom, did you bring this up just to point out basically that this is another revenue stream that maybe needs to
Yeah.
be explored as
Yeah.
opposed
Yeah, I
to,
would-
like, there's not
before we, I'm sorry.
I think we're being really
It's not a 4-to-1. That was
be-
kind of
So.
Before we
okay,
get into the weeds on this, because this is not something that the board can manage, okay? We don't know what the background of this charge is, how it was constructed, what other trade-offs were made between the two towns. None of that information. So, and we don't even have the data necessarily. We have some anecdotal data, but not really data. So I think I think as Maureen said, this was highlighting a potential opportunity which we need to raise with the town council, with Mark Ells, whoever is the appropriate person. And then we need to turn over, our thoughts about it, our ideas, our proposals, that potentially, and then have some kind of a discussion with town manager or Mark Milne or whoever else, we have to do. Because this is not something it's not a Sandy Neck, purview to do this. It's not the board's purview to do this. We're just saying there's something here that needs to be looked at. Now, at the end of the day, they may look at it and go, yeah, but we do this trade-off with them on DPW, and we do this trade. I have no idea. But our job is to highlight issues and advise them, which is what we'll do about this issue. And then the town has to take it from there and decide, whether they want to pursue it or not. And so,
I guess if I could just follow my thought through. So if Barnstable contribution is 100,000, let's just say, we'll be, nice about it. Round number, 100,000. Sandwich should be at least equal to us, right? At least. They should be paying 100. They should not be paying 54. They should be paying 100. If our contribution is 200,000, when you start adding in the other things, then Sandwich should be at 200,000, at least.
these are all
But-
arguments
but
that have to be
maybe-
made.
Maybe they're 4 times the
Right.
usage. We need to measure what the usage is and use that as ammunition to talk to Mark Ells or whoever it is.
I think before we get involved in a massive study, we need to do, I think, is to crack the idea open with the town and say, look, there's, with
fair.
4 bullet points, we think there's an opportunity here. Do you want us to go after it, get you more data? How do you want to handle it? Do you want us to forget about it? Because for us to do massive amount of work and then, Mark Ells or whatever, just say, no, that's, don't want to mess with this, for other reasons.
But you guys just did a vote that you realize there's this big
Right.
debt and that you're going to,
Right.
and you don't, and the backstop is the general fund, which is not desirable for the taxpayers of this town. So this is the moment to evaluate this. I think we have to be careful with our language. It's not like we're going after them. And generally, it comes from like a cost of service analysis, a little more gently coming in there and just being like, is this a place? And a town of Sandwich, who is doing quite a bit, Renee, you're right, I'm seeing a lot of great things. It's like you really have to be respectful of their budget, and it's perhaps they're in the future raising their rates $5, and that makes it a difference. But we're not like digging into their other recreational things that they're doing for their community. Sorry, yes.
I recall in previous years going through this whole process, all right? And it all involved fee structure. And they even had their head of, I want to say it's the marine environment, they came here and they gave us a talk. And ultimately, what it boiled down to is the town managers are the two that take and make the decision as to the amount of money, the percentage that is, you see up there. Now, that's going back a long time, all right?
But it's still standing, that's the thing. It's
And there
still
could be 10 other things that they have the same discussion about, whether there are other areas of cooperation,
It's
but
like,
I don't know.
But again, it's not something that hasn't been brought forward before, and each town manager says, well, I'll take care of it. So
But
again,
I do think the resilient project has a significant difference here.
That's
That there
correct.
is some significant capital
Yes.
that has to be raised that is above and beyond incremental
Yep.
increases. And I think that that's the message. And the fact that we've gotten money coming our way to support it is a feather in our cap, but
Right.
it's everyone's piece of project. And sometimes the projects are such that you have a fee just for that,
Right.
a resilient project fee, that everyone
Right.
nods and say, oh, I understand that.
There-
Because the money has to be raised.
Yeah, I mean, we tossed around the idea of, and I know it's probably not possible, but could you have Sandwich take part of the bond? Just take the debt, take $500,000 of debt. And then there's no difference cost-wise
So
between
that's
doing that.
exactly what ought to be done, but it'll never happen.
No, right, but you could, but if,
You don't know the answer until you ask.
well, you got to
the
ask,
question.
yeah.
Oh.
But my point was really that if you're talking about,
Yeah.
if you said, well, they won't take an $800,000 bond because they're not going to finance something in a different town. However, if that bond costs $57,000 a year, maybe they pay $57,000 a year so we can fund the bond. You know what I mean? There's different ways of doing that. So, but this needs to be done at a level of, that is
I
not,
think they have to understand, I think the understanding at that level is that there's a nice chunk of money that has to be
Right.
recovered somehow. And it's an exception. It's not something that comes year after year. This is a pretty significant critical path project.
yeah, except that it won't be, it's not, I don't think you can treat it like a fuel surcharge where it goes on this year and it's off 2 years. This is you're talking about a 20-year, potentially 20-year
Well, I
commitment.
think we're showing them no
But
added
thinking.
value
Yeah.
with the resiliency project. I think
No,
we have more amenities than they have at any of the other.
If we can't get something done this now, to Renee's point, with this project, we'll never get anything done.
Right.
So this is the time, this is why we're bringing it up, okay? Because it's
I ask.
the time to bring it up. So I'll work on that with Nina and try to figure out how we maneuver properly to get this raised up to the right people and try to have that discussion again.
I think getting the data that you talked about earlier, that shows the usage versus our
Yeah, you won't
usage.
get that now until next summer, so that's the
Right.
really slight
I
problem with
don't,
that.
I mean, I agree, but, there's no way we can do every day. Maybe next year we could do sampling. But I have done that before in the past, and it was like 1 to 1 to 1. So even if you did, I've done a cost of service in the past. This is not covering the cost of service. The $54,000 is not covering cost
No,
of
it's not.
services.
We're losing money on
I
it.
have known that for years.
Yeah.
Everything is going up. Doesn't even remotely cover like all the
2.5%
sand, the
increase.
$1 million of sand that we have.
In the world, you could
I think that,
So even if you just do a cost of service and you do a third of that cost of running the public beach only, you're going to see that the number is not 54,000.
I think the data is less important than the point Renee made, which is, the way I would present it is, we got this big project that relates to that parking lot. It's going to cost all this money, even if it's 50/50. Forget about whether it's 4 to 1 or 8 to 1, it's 50/50. Barnstable is taking all of the cost for that project. Sandwich is taking zero of the cost. Does that make any sense? That's the way I would phrase it, and I would shut up after that.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
If the answer is no, then you go to the next step. But if the answer is yes, don't worry about it, it's all factored in, then at least you did at least you brought it up, you brought it forward. Because I think if you get in the weeds of the data, then you're going to have people, well, it's only 3 to 1, not 2 to 1, is that, just.
2.5
We got a
today.
$6.5 million project
Yeah.
and that we're not
that Barnstable
pennies
is
over.
absorbing the cost for, even though we're probably only using that parking lot less than,
There's
Maybe a third
there's
at a
lot of
time.
Massachusetts grants, and that would cover Sandwich as well. So
Yes.
we need to
No,
be
that's
clear
true,
about
but
that.
there's an increment.
Left over
right,
is coming out of,
Right.
out of our enterprise.
right. Which could be, well over $1 million, so it's not insignificant. Okay, I think we've had enough discussion on that one.
On Sandwich, right? We finished the conversation
Yeah,
on
so
Sandwich.
back to fees.
Okay.
The question I raised before, which we didn't discuss, is as a principle, do we want to try either do it or attempt to leave the residents of Barnstable fees flat, not increase the other ones anymore, but just not raise the Barnstable, which would mainly be a couple of the camper fees and the overall ORV fee, pretty much.
I
Right.
think the cost of service is going up and up and up. I think that's like what a performa does, is shows that you have to have that cost following the fees. So, I could go through garbage fees and fuel fees, everything's
Yeah.
up.
The one thing that, it comes to me that piggybacking on what Renee said, this is a big project. And we look at fees every 2 years to take and incrementally go up $1, $5. Why don't we, because we have this project coming up, why don't we have a yearly fee? All right? And again, you start today and it's like, okay, and you can anticipate next year it's going to be another $5. Build it in so that when people get the bill, they know, oh yeah, I know what that's for. That's for that $6 million beach replenishment and enhancement for the next 50 years. Instead of doing it every 2 years, do it every year so everybody gets
Well,
used.
we a couple of years ago, we broke the mold of the 2-to-1 ratios, and I guess, what you're raising is the question of whether we break the mold on fees being increased every 2 years. I mean, there's no really reason to do that I'm aware of. Just been practice.
So we don't know what our debt service is. Right now, what the figure I showed you was 57. This gets you about to around 90 to 95 per year. But as I said, the costs are going up. There's capital improvement we need to do. We need to buffer up our surpluses. So when you look at that, I just want to be clear that that's not just the project. That's the running of the beach.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to do it every year.
So, okay, so following up on that, these proposals, how much more in totals is that generating additionally?
So like I just said, it's between 90 and 95. I think I put it, I might have put it lower, just to be careful. Let me see what I came up with.
Is that something you handed out to us?
No.
Okay.
This is my notes.
It's when she was just
Keep
speaking a
in mind
minute
that
ago, she had said
that's
the
also
90 to
against
95.
losing
That's
money,
what she
losing
meant. This
revenue
would
on
give
that.
you
I
90
did
to
it
95
85 to 100 is what when I calculated it out.
The additions.
Yeah, 85 to 100 per year for this fee schedule that's in front of you.
And on average, how much has the surplus been each year? As an average? Do you-
I really don't have an average, it kind of jumps all over the place.
all over.
Yeah, but we've pretty much had a surplus every year of some amount except COVID.
Is it like 100,000?
I really am
surplus?
not going to
You don't know?
guess on
Okay.
a number.
Again, it moves around with the sand expenditures. Because some years we've spent
Right.
a lot of money on sand, some years we haven't, so
Right.
$100,000 is what it takes to put sand on the beach at this point, like one sand.
One sand, yeah.
That you could lose in one shot.
Yeah.
That's,
but again, the
Yeah.
next
To the
week.
year where we had to do it 3 times. Or no, we had 3 nor'easters, but
yeah, no, I've only had to do it once, but I mean, that is bringing the surplus up so that we can handle a disaster like that.
Right.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is really generally just support for let's keep all the fees moving, irrespective of whether you're a resident or not, just so we keep everything moving up over time, which gives us some additional revenue. And then we should just, think about this for the next month. You have another month before this gets voted on in October. And then we'll make the recommendation to Mark Ells
Right.
for our fee recommendation, which then he takes to the town council ultimately.
Take and make another draft and basically incorporate what Maureen said about some of these, instead of $1, you go up $5?
Yeah.
So, I certainly can, we're talking about camper fees. So generally, that's a 2-to-1 ratio. So I went up $1 for residents and $2 for non-residents. So Maureen, if you tell me what you want my next draft to do, I'd be happy to put it on there.
Did you decide not to do something on the special permits?
So, and speaking to staff, it is $30 throughout town, but we do charge all our special permits, almost all our special permits, a fire permit as well. So that is an additional revenue. So we kind of felt like we should be consistent with the rest of the town.
Okay.
So this overnight camping is per night, and people will typically stay for, what can they stay?
Four.
Three, four, okay.
4 tops, so it's all over the place. Some people are there every weekend.
At
Some
the
people
risk of
come
dying on the stake. No, I think that, like, for resident slide-on, I think it's reasonable to do like 15, and then if you like follow down, like, okay, then go $1 more for 25, and then the camper residents, I think it's reasonable to go to 20. I think those are reasonable numbers, 15, 25, and 20. I think is very reasonable. You can even go, I feel you can go up to 10 on the Chase easily. Sorry. No, I think it's very reasonable. You can camp on the beach with your camper, your boat, and your trailer for cheaper than somebody can stay in the tent site. Like,
Point.
It's a good point. It's a really good point.
and I also understand, like, that campers and residents is a smaller number, and so you're not gaining as much revenue from it. And to Tom's point, when he's asking the question or when he's making the statement about maybe not raising the residence rate, I see that there is some long-term wisdom in that as far as maybe support for our project and stuff, and that they're already paying the tax base, and now this project and this, and again, they're not a large portion of the number compared to the out of residence.
Are you talking about for the fee for the permit itself?
Yes.
And still raise the rates for the camping?
Well, yes and no.
Oh, okay.
I know, it's confusing, I apologize. I was kind of circling back to when Tom was saying maybe we would not raise the resident rate, and trying to like process that and understand that, and then, how much does that impact our project? And, they're already taxpayers, and I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why you're saying that is not, raising the resident rate?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the slide showing the utilization.
Utilization and numbers and things like that.
Pretty stagnant
yeah.
for the town, but, so it's just that, and some, of course, they're competing with people from out of town for that beach space too, right? So that's another element that we won't get into here, but I mean, so it's, although luckily this year it worked out pretty well, but, it's 1,800 stickers times $5. I mean, you're talking about 10 grand, it's not a lot of money, but the question is, it's why I phrased it as a principle question, is there a principle that we would want to take as a board to say, look,
And I like the principle. I like the principle that as a resident here, we love our tourists, and we take it, we live with all the extra traffic and all of that being with the tourists, but something that's nice for the resident. It's kind of a nice balance there. I mean, I do like that mindset, right? That, we understand that living here and taking care of the resources that fuel our economy, right? Then let there be something that we think about for our residents, because there's more than enough of the people that treasure what we have.
Coming from the outside.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, why don't we,
I like that little philosophy if you.
why don't we table that for now, and,
Yeah, I kind of need some direction,
yeah,
because you people aren't making any sense to me, no. I just want to provide, you so to be clear, we need to have a vote at the next meeting if we want to raise the rates, which we need to. So I want to provide you a good draft. So
So we're
starting
not
with the
arguing
resident thing, to remember, we didn't raise the residents 2 years ago because of this concept. So it would, if we didn't raise the residents $5 this year, it'll be 4 years
All
before
right, so
we
then
have
you're
another
saying
go.
it's due because of the.
I mean, just the, everything goes, I mean, just everything is going up. So,
I'm not going to argue.
So resident, you guys are okay with
going up $5.
going up $5?
Sure.
All right,
Okay.
I'm just going to write it down as we're talking about this.
That's what we
okay?
have to do. We all agree, good.
I was looking for my pen, which
Yeah,
is right here.
right there. It's okay.
All right, so we're going to, you good with that?
yeah, I think it's a board discussion and decision. I don't think it's
But I mean, if we're
personal.
going to frame it, you know, like, this is, at least we're getting some figures down, so it does make a little bit more sense. And nobody has said anything about the non-resident fees, so we'll just leave that the way that is?
I think that was the theory, to go.
Yeah.
with
It's the
another
theory.
theory.
And now, all right, so Maureen, I need you to explain, okay, so camping, all right, so camping. So resident camping for a slide-on, what should it be? No, I mean, this was your thought, so,
But I just want to point out, right now, that's
You're
a
a
2-to-1
user, so
ratio.
you're-
You see that? So what you just suggested to me was not 2-to-1.
Correct.
Right.
Which I
Which is fine.
did not realize, like, as far as that was your methodology, and not sure if I would
That
like
way,
to,
it
right.
doesn't have to be that way, but that's, I got to start somewhere, so that's what I did.
My original thought when I looked at it was, wow, a lot of time and effort is put into this for just $1 raise, okay, in increase. And so that
Utilization's
was
3 to
my,
1, so-
honestly, my original.
Which is very easy to do digitally, just so you know. So if we kept raising it $1 every year, every other year, right, it's 2 seconds to change the equation. So there's not much effort on my side.
If you keep it to your 2-to-1, but increase it a little bit more,
Okay.
would be my recommendation.
Okay.
How's that?
Got it.
2-to-1. All right, so
Okay.
we can figure that out.
And it doesn't, I think having the two proposals maybe and seeing what the price increase is.
Like it's $1 to $2.
You know what I mean? Like,
No, I agree.
So that way we can decide, is it worth,
So say if we were to take like last year's camper nights and use that formula.
Correct.
And say, this is what we, because we're not done with camper nights this year, but this is what we had last year, non-resident, resident, slide on, blah, blah, blah. And if we increase it, would be the additional revenue, hopefully, right? Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of? We'll figure it out.
right, yeah.
Round up.
Yeah, to get back to the big project that we've got coming up, instead of going every 2 years, why don't we just have one that's every year? This is what's going to be every,
Well, the fees are on they're on the agenda every year, this September meeting. So if you
No.
guys want
A resilient
We can decide that
project
next
fee.
year.
to, like,
A
it's
resilient project
yeah,
fee.
you can
We can
bring
do
that
that
to me
next year.
and ask me to create
Raise
a
them again.
draft.
Yeah.
I think we'll know a lot more by then about the funding,
Yeah.
and that could dictate, what we do with fees next year. But that's available to us if we want to do it, so.
Is it possible, you said digitally you can do all this, can you multiply it out and show us what the total increase will be by category? And, because obviously your ORV is going to have a biggest impact here of everything. And maybe
Yeah.
the overnight camping really adds up to really next to nothing, probably.
So you already know the answer.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be
I'm not
happy
sure
to
you're
do
gonna-
that, But yes, the money has always come from non-resident day trippers.
Right.
That is where the whole beach runs off of. And
Yeah,
and
there's-
if you look at the matrix, you can see that we are still way below all these other beaches for non-resident.
After 2 weekends, you've now become the most expensive camping beach out of any of them on the Cape, with nightly fees.
After 2 weekends, what do you mean?
After 2 weekends, if you have to pay nightly to stay on the beach, you have now become the most expensive beach to camp on.
The matrix.
Because you pay seasonal fee for self-contained at Race Point or Nauset. Whereas with a camper, you have to pay for a resident or non-resident sticker and a nightly fee and a chase vehicle if you take
Are
one.
you limited in nights, how many nights you can stay on either of those beaches during the summer?
Nauset, no.
No, so,
Year
okay.
round.
It was 21 days.
Year round. Only during the peak season, which they close for a short time for the HCP, but they've modified that. And you can have campfires, they just have to be contained.
Right, contains
Think of all the gas you save, though, not driving to Nauset. And traffic.
Yeah.
The guy just came back from Maine, what does he know?
But the other beaches don't allow campers, as far as I know. So you've got Race Point.
Right, comparing Race
Point
Point,
had-
Nauset, and Sandy Neck
Race Point does have a limit of how many nights you
during
get.
the season. But you can stay out there. You
So
can go
Nauset's the
year-round.
best deal for that.
So
They
they
also
don't
have-
charge a nightly fee, is what you're saying, overnight fee?
Do they also have a relatively limited opportunity for campers? How many campers, I don't know the answer,
At
but,
Nauset,
no, at Race Point, I don't think there's tons of room, is there, for campers?
depending on what's open, Patches Harbor, all of that.
Well, we've had a good discussion, I think. Let's think about it. We have a month to think about it a bit more. If you guys put another draft together, get it out to us, and then when we get back together, we'll have a final discussion and vote in October.
You know, it'd be really helpful, I know I've brought this up every year. It'd be really helpful to have a pro forma.
I have a pro forma. I've always had a pro forma, but
Well, if we could look at total revenues, new revenues being generated, less the costs as projected, so we can see what the surplus is going to be. And it'd be nice to know if that surplus is going to cover, you know, the additional costs of a $6.5 million
Doesn't Mark have something
capital
like that? I mean, they
improvement.
must have something for Sandy Night,
so.
for the overall.
So, you know, it's set up differently because it's a municipality. So when you set up your budget, it's expenses equal revenue, projected revenue. So anything beyond that's cake. So if we don't use all our expenses, that goes back into surplus. If we make more revenue than our projections, which I always put low per mark, it's all cake. So I'm not sure what you would gain from seeing that, because when we set it up yearly, it's going to be the same number in and the same number out.
Well, I'm
But if
looking
you
for
want
that
me to-
cake number.
You want the cake number?
Yeah.
What that's been over the years.
Yes. Or at least going forward, so we can,
Or you can't predict it
in
going
other
forward.
words, to
It's-
just increase fees for the sake of increasing fees because we can do it. I'm not sure that's a
I
legitimate,
definitely don't think that's what we're suggesting here.
I
That's
think-
not even remotely what we're suggesting.
so to
So-
see it in hard print would be helpful.
No, you're missing the three elements of this that we talked about. We talked about benchmarking is just confirmation that you're in the competitive arena, okay? Because whatever's driving you to increase fees, which in this case is the project
Big five.
and the funding of the beach on a day-to-day basis, those are the primary drivers. If you're going to do something, you want to know when you do it that you're not putting yourself in an uncompetitive position where you start to see the pricing stability, change the revenue, right? So if you price it too high, you start to see that number down because everybody's going to Race Point, then okay, there's no more elasticity in the pricing. We have to stop, But that's not a reason not to do it.
That,
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing here is that there's a lot of price elasticity because
that's what all that's setting us up
we're
for.
not losing any, no one's running away because of the prices. And we know that because, how do we know that? Well, no one's leaving. And two, we can see how we are compared to other beaches. So that's just a frame of reference. But the drivers are money we need to run the beach and money we need to do the project. That's the driver. Otherwise, yeah, maybe we wouldn't raise them in a
And the
particular
buffer.
year,
And the
And build up the reserve, yeah. So, okay. Why don't we move on?
Election of board
Did
officers.
you guys do the minutes, or did I?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Long time ago.
It's too late now.
So now we're at
No,
the
I remember
election
now.
of board officers.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the final.
Had all this other stuff in my brain.
We've been holding off. We're supposed to do this in July. We didn't do it in July because we had 3 of us up for reappointment. So we are now reappointed, so we can have the, I found my paperwork, the election of officers. So it's a pretty simple process. We have 2 roles, chairman and vice chair. Anybody can make a nomination. You can just yell it out. It doesn't have to be formal. You can also nominate yourself. Doesn't need a second. Once we get an idea of who, if anybody wants to run, then we'd just have a voice vote to confirm the election of the officers. Viva voce. Voice vote. Just a Italian word for that process.
Well, I'll nominate our president or our chair to stay the chair.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
As long as you accept it, Chair.
I'll accept it.
That was a train, by the way.
I'll nominate Mr. Sampu as vice chair.
Second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That was quick. All right, thank you, by the
How long were
way.
we stuck with you guys again? No, I'm just kidding.
No, thank you, everybody, appreciate that. Okay, public comment.
Public comment?
Other than the groan we heard from Paul? Yeah.
Don't know her name. No, we're going to ask her name.
Well, this has been interesting. I've never been here before.
So you have to state your name,
My
please.
name is Tonda Lamb. It's Tonda, Lamb, Lamb, and I live in Sandwich.
Okay.
So I've been listening to everything you said.
We've been talking about you.
The people that were here earlier heard me say that, but the rest of you didn't. So I've been waiting almost a year for this meeting, because when I did call to find out, when you talk about the fees, my point is about making a fire on Sandy Neck Beach. When my husband and I were thinking of retiring 13 years ago, we chose Cape Cod. We could have gone any place, and that's where we wanted to be, and we're happy to be here. The small town atmosphere, wonderful neighbors and events that we have. Right away, some of the locals told us about in the summertime, you can go to the beach and make a fire, just need a shovel and a wood pile, and bring your food, and it was free. Okay, then it got to be $5, and at that time, I think they limited the fire permits. Might have been 10, I don't know what it was, but we didn't get there in time to get a fire permit because we didn't know. So we said, well, we'll sit on the beach and we'll eat chips and salad and marshmallows. And a nice lady came over to us, and to me, this typifies Sandwich. She said, we forgot our condiments. Do you have any ketchup and mustard? We said, yeah, we have ketchup and mustard. We don't have a fire. She said, well, you come use our fire, and we'll use your condiments. And I love that about being here. It's happened in numerous ways. Then the fee went to $10, and now it's $20. And for a family, that's a lot of money to spend $20 to sit on a free beach and dig a hole in the sand. I know some people say people leave garbage. Well, would it be feasible to have numbered fire sites so that you know who left the mess and not charge everybody for it? It's our kids' favorite thing to do when they come. They don't live here, but when they do come, they want to go to Sandy Neck Beach and make a fire. And I like to take guests, and it's $20 is a lot of money for me on top of the food. And I just wonder why you have to charge that much.
I don't have the answer to that. I think it's an operational issue. I
Yeah,
think Nina
it's definitely an
explained.
operational issue. So there's a free fire permit if you have an off-road vehicle sticker. So all those, that's an option as well.
To have an off-road vehicle?
Sticker, yeah.
Well, I don't have an off-road vehicle.
So a lot of people are using it that way. We have a limited spot that's not the public beach. For years, it was so popular. Like, I would hear comments like, the area's on fire. There's so many fires. So we're having a lot of underage drinking, a lot of trash, a lot of issues because unlike the off-road vehicle beach, everybody in the off-road vehicle beach, we know, we have their information. If they're misbehaving, we can revoke their sticker. So that's why we went to the permit system, to have somebody who was responsible for the fire, and so that they could be held accountable. It is extremely popular. It's one of the few beaches that you can do this activity, and it takes a lot of effort. You know, we have to sell the permits. We have to deal with people who are disappointed who don't get in line on time. We have to manage it from an enforcement standpoint. We have to make sure everybody puts it out correctly. And then we have to clean up the beach. Even if it's not trash man, we do also pick up all the dead wood as well. So it's just another one of those activities that's unique to Sandy Neck, and that fee, I think we raised that fee
A couple of years ago.
2 years ago. It went to 20, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not being proposed to be raised any further. I think we're about where we need to be right now. There's additional fees for groups over 20, which is also on the sheet that you may have in front of you, so that supplements as well. But we are providing a service. We keep the restrooms open. That's money, people. Trash is extremely expensive. Staffing is expensive, and
safety issue. One of the other reasons we went to the 10 permits and was discussions with the fire department. The fire chief said, wow, it does look like it's on fire. For safety purposes, it used to be kind of like an unlimited number of fire permits. And then we have a very close relationship with West Barnstable Fire Department because they're the ones that come to us when there's a problem. And it was a discussion, a very serious discussion about that's just too many fires on the beach. And so part of that is also having to do with safety.
yeah. Are any of the beaches in Sandwich? I think there's illegal fires, right?
Well, my friend's son goes down to, and she goes to I think it's East Sandwich Beach. They don't have to pay. They just let the fire department know they're going to be there.
Oh, that's great.
And another issue they have is the parking there. There's a beer place there that takes up all the parking spaces that are supposed to be beach parking, and she's tried to do something about that and gets nowhere. Just wanted to bring that up, but I love it here. I'm glad we came, and I just wanted to state my piece.
No, we appreciate that. It's always good to have the public participate, and you know, I think hopefully Nina explained it well enough to you that you understand it. You may not agree with it, but it's at least you have an explanation now.
I think you did something when you limited it to the number of people. So when it was out of hand, that's a different thing. But now that it's limited, it should be under control, and it shouldn't have to cost that much.
We still, like she said, we still have to have the bathhouse open. Most places don't have the bathhouse open after hours. You know, we still have to have security, which is our natural resource officers maintaining security. So there's a lot of moving pieces that may not be so well seen. We have the snack bar that's open, and then they close, you know, right when the fires are starting. But we have a lot of amenities, but mostly it's safety, staffing, cleanup, that kind of
Had all
thing.
that when it was free or $10.
And we were that was a problem then. That was a problem. So this was not just done all at once. This was incrementally, and then doing a lot of discussion with law enforcement and fire department and Nina, the park manager, you know, what is required by staff, what is required for safety. And so that's what we all came up with, or the board came up with, we made suggestions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Or I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Might be one of our world's records meetings.